This is going to be fun. And Dustin is going to show us how to utilize the AI in Magi to create your face. And he's going to give a lot of examples and go through how we're going to do this to use for business, for fun, for basically anything you need it to be. Hey man, this is just crazy what we could do with AI nowadays. And Dustin is at the leading edge of all of this. So he's going to share his screen. And he's going to show us some of the brilliant stuff that he could do in Magi. Mike is yours.
All right. So one of the things that is really fascinating when AI imagery took off, you saw a lot of these create your own AI headshot apps pop up, right? And it was usually fun and quirky, and put your face on an astronaut or put your face on, a superhero or something like that. And they're all very quirky is the word that I would use for them. Not very realistic. It was completely obvious that it was AI generated work. It wasn't photorealistic, at least not to the point where you couldn't tell the difference. But AI has come a long way, and as of now, there is the most fantastic model in the world, in my opinion, in terms of photorealistic image quality. It's called Flux, and Flux now allows you to train your own version or your own custom Flux model. The technical term is a LoRa, which basically just stands for a model trained on something that you specifically wanted to train it on. And the great part about that is you can literally train your own version of Flux to recreate your face or any character that you want to recreate. But most people are using it for their own face because they want to do photo shoots, maybe get some professional headshots done without having to spend $2,000 on a professional photographer. And Flux actually makes it super easy to do. And we've incorporated that into Magi so that anybody with a handful of photos of themselves can create their own custom model and do photo shoots of themselves. So I'll demonstrate just how easy that is. Let me see, max readability. And I'm wondering if it would be better off. I'm gonna have to do the entire screen. So bear with me. It'll be a brief flash of infinite windows. And I'll switch quickly over here to Magi. All right, here we go. So we're inside Magi, inside the image editor interface, and we have on the right-hand side here, we have our Generate tab. Now, when you click on the Generate tab, it opens up the form where you can type your prompt, select your model, size, style, etc. So I'm going to first select the style, or the model rather, and I'm going to scroll down to Flux LoRa. Now, again, Flux LoRa is the name of the technical term for a custom image model. And you can see here, it has a LoRa already trained on me. I've got some examples in here. But just real quickly, the way that you would train a LoRa or train this model is you would click that button, give it a name, give it a trigger word. A trigger word is essentially how the AI will identify the subject in the photo. So you, for example, you would write your name in here. So every time you write your name in the prompt, AI knows that you're talking about the subject that it was trained on. So you write your trigger word there. You would select to create a mask. Essentially what this does is make sure the AI knows it should isolate the subject inside the image that you give it, or the training images that you give it, rather than looking at the entire image and training on the entire image. It will kind of isolate that subject the best it can. Number of steps just means how intensive do you want this to be? How much training do you want the AI to do? Now, the caveat here is too little training might not have the highest quality results. Too much training, if you go all the way to the edge, it may not be able to follow prompts closely because it's going to try to recreate the photos that you gave it exactly, rather than having the wiggle room to create outside of those training images. So the best practice here is actually to do around 2000. 2000 seems to be the sweet spot so that you get great resemblance of the subject, but you still can do a lot of different things with it, and it follows your prompts very closely.
Dustin, can you go back real quick and explain the difference between is style and create mask?
Yeah, so in this tutorial, we're really focusing on training it on a subject being you or your face, or a person. The same applies to if you're training it on a product, a subject that you want to be to put in different environments, essentially, to create around that one subject. Now, style references whether or not you would want it to train it on a style of imagery. So let's say you wanted to train it only on the work of Claude Monet, and you only want to apply stylistic that style to the images you generate. You don't have a specific person or subject or item in mind, but you want it to replicate a specific style of imagery. That's when you would choose to train it on style, and then you would build that training material on that one style of image, and then that model would then only generate items in that style. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So going back here, choose your steps, and then it's just a matter of dropping in a zip file that contains all of your training images. Now I'm going to pull up my folder here where I've got a bunch of images myself. Can you see this little Finder window here?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so I've got a folder that I've built, and I've dropped in a handful of photos of myself. Now, unfortunately, I realized in this process that I don't take a whole lot of photos of myself, and most of the images that I have of myself happen to be in my office. So ideally, you want to get as many different angles, as many different environments as you can of yourself. You want as much variety of your face as possible to train this model on. See, mine are very similar, a lot like, I think something like 30% of them are all in my office, which is fine. It'll still work. But I've noticed in a lot of my outputs, it tends to put that wooden wall background texture in a lot of the photos. So just know that you want a good variety. You don't want to be in the same place for the most part, but it's still
for instance, you want maybe some at home, some out in a bar, some out in nature, some playing baseball. What about? And I noticed that most of your photos, I haven't seen any that are not straight on full. What about profile?
Yeah, again, I don't have a great variety of photos of myself. Usually, I'm the one taking photos. I noticed of my family, like I'm rarely in them because I'm the one taking them. But if you have photos that you can literally spend 5 minutes, go walk around. But of course, you don't want to wear the same clothing. You want to have a variety of clothing. Again, this is another problem of mine. I used to only wear red shirts. But you want variety, as much variety as possible. Close up, distance, full body, 3/4, as much variety as you can possibly get of yourself. That would be ideal. But again, like as you'll see with my training set here, you can still get great results if you don't have a huge variety of images. But ideally, side angles, top down, under, you want to get as much versatility in your photography as possible. But it can work even if you don't. So best practice, again, at least 10 photos. You really don't need more than that. But the more photos you have, the more angles, the more variety, the higher quality the output's going to be. Once you have all those photos in a folder on your computer, what you want to do, I don't know what the process looks like on Windows, forgive me, but on a Mac, we have the option to compress a folder. And when you select that option, it turns it into a zip file. Windows, I'm sure they have a function on there that will convert the folder to a zip file as well. But you want to get a zip file because that's the format that is required to train your model on. So once you have that in Magi, you would simply just drag and drop it right in there, or you can click inside the input to upload it manually. And then it's going to take its time. It's going to upload that folder, that file. And once it's done, you'll have a little button that shows up down below that will say Train Laura. And that's it. That's really all it takes. It'll take about 3 to 5 minutes, depending on how large your file is or how many photos you put in there to train the model. But once that model has been trained, you'll notice that you'll have it available in your list of Lauras. So let me close this out and show you here. So this is my list of trained LoRa's. You'll notice it says completed on the right-hand side. If it wasn't completed, it would say pending. So then you can just select it from the list, and then you'll notice it shows up in here which LoRa you're using, and it gives you a reminder of what your trigger word is. If you click on it, you can copy it to the clipboard. So my trigger word for this one is just Dustin. And let me just go ahead and find some examples. So search in my library. I'll search for Dustin. We'll see some of the creations that I've made. Some of them better than others, but you can tell it does a fairly good job with the limited training data that I gave it. Really does a fantastic job. And some of these are so good that even someone like me who is looking at AI generated images every day and can typically spot one, some of these are so good that I wouldn't be able to tell you in all honesty if it is real or fake. But it does a phenomenal job. Some of these I've tried to show my wife, and she has some opinions about, some look better than others, but there have been more than a few where she's like, yeah, that's spot on.
That is crazy. So
Yeah.
two things. I want you to go back to the page before this where it's showing the 3 different Dustins. And can you explain why you have, I see that you had one at 2000, one at 1000, and one that just said Dustin. Was that you?
Yeah. So I was exploring, as a
okay.
trainer, as somebody who has to educate people on this, I was, exploring what happens if I do 2000 steps, what happens if I do 1000 steps, what happens if I do a mask, what happens if I don't do a mask. So I've probably trained 12 different LoRa's, and these are just the ones that remain that I, was still testing back and forth. Now, a more advanced approach, you can do exactly like I did here, but another way to get even better results is something that's known as, or what's the technical term is captioning. So the idea is that along with your photo references, you also create text files that contain a caption or a description of what's inside that photo for the model to associate specific words with that photo. So in this folder, Dustin 005, you'll notice I have text documents in here, and I've actually renamed all these files numerically in order so that they can correspond with the given caption for that file. So 01.text goes with 01.jpg, and 02.text goes with 02.jpg. So again, not necessary, but if you want to really influence the AI to the maximum degree, you can go through and create these text files that provide a caption for the AI to associate with the given training data. And the process would be exactly the same. Turn it into a zip file and then upload it just like you would. I haven't noticed dramatically better results, but I do seem to have a little bit less of the background bleeding in. I don't know if I have any examples of this in here. So yeah, you notice here in the back, the wall texture isn't the exact wall texture I have in my office. So you can tell some of the influence bled through of the background elements, and it wasn't just me. So when you have these captions in there, you can avoid some of that. And that's as easy as it is. I mean, it truly is super simple.
And did you write the text, or did you have Magi write the text for you, the text description?
I actually had Magi do it. So I had a text conversation, and I can probably pull it up here.
Yeah, it'd be great if we could show that. This way we're showing both sides of Magi. So Magi is reading the information on the photo and telling you what's in it?
Yes. So let me see if I can.
Oh my goodness. Please show our viewers how you did that.
I might be in a different workspace.
Because when you said, writing text for whatever it was, 25 photos, my mind immediately went to, I don't have time to do that.
Yeah.
I don't want to hurt my brain thinking about every detail of, the nooks and crannies in my face on this photo. But if Magi could do it, that would be outstanding if you could just show us the method for how it would do that.
Okay, here it is. So I opened up a new chat and I switched to GPT-4o Mini because for a task like this, where it's just describing an image, you don't need the smartest model in the world. And since all of these models cost different, you can actually switch to a cheaper model, save some of your account usage for the higher complex tasks, and it'll do just fine. So I chose GPT-4o Mini, and I've just got the assistant persona here. And all I did was in the prompt area, you can upload an image, a file, a document, anything. Just uploaded one image at a time at the beginning just to see how it did. And you can see my prompt is simple. I'm going to train an AI image model on images of me. I need you to create a caption to go along with these images to better inform the training model of what's in the image. Describe each image I give you in a few sentences. Make it ideal for an image training model. The main subject, person, you will see in each photo is me, Dustin. So use my proper name in each image description. Start with the attached image. So you can see I attached the first image and then it output a description. And I said, great, here's the next image, attached it, and it gave me a description. And I repeated that process until the point where I was like, wait, maybe I could upload multiple images and save myself from having to do this too much. It took me a while to realize that, but here we go. It said, here are 3 images, describe each individually. And I uploaded 3 images at once, and it gave me image 1, image 2, image 3. I modified this just a little bit to add the code blocks that you see there. That's just a feature of the Markdown input that we have here. So when you wrap something in these little backticks, it treats it as like it were like a code, a block of code. And then it gives it a nice little box and it gives you a copy button so I can easily copy these. So that was just an edit I made. Now, once I made that edit, here's a fun little fact about AI. Once I made that edit and the AI sees how it's formatted, the next time I did it, it automatically did it itself. So I uploaded 3 more images and it followed that same pattern because it thinks it's the one that did this one in the previous version. And so I just continued doing that 3 at a time. It seemed like 3 was the magic number. If I did 4, I did 4 here and it didn't quite capture it all the way. I think I had to modify this last one myself. But yeah, that's how I did it. Super simple and AI assisted. Took 10 minutes maybe to actually accomplish all of that, but well worth the time. So I didn't have to spend the mental energy describing these images myself. And not only that, I got a consistent output, a consistent format, and then it was just a matter of copying each one and then putting it into a text file and saving it.
So can you explain the last thing you talked about, where you now have the button to save? I didn't really get what you did with all of your highfalutin language.
Yeah. So
and why the text boxes look different than they did in the beginning.
Yeah. So Markdown is a way of formatting. So when you open up a text editor and you highlight something, you make it bold or italic or underline. That's rich text formatting. And Markdown is a way of doing rich text formatting, but with symbols. So here, since I'm editing this, you see the raw text version. You notice that there is an asterisk, a double asterisk at the beginning, double asterisk at the end. That in Markdown language means this word is bold. Everything in between the asterisk is bold. Now, if I were to do underscores, that would mean it's italics, okay? And likewise, the 3 backticks you see at the beginning and the end, that communicates whatever is in between these backticks is code. It's like the developer writing code to build an application. So when you save this and when the page displays this text, it formats it just like a rich text formatter. So this word is now bold, and these words are inside of a code block. Typically it would look, you would use code to write things like, oops. if you were trying to document your coding language. So you would have like div button or class equals button. And this is just a way to again, do rich text formatting for, to get that effect.
But this isn't necessary for normal people.
No, it's not necessary. This is just
cut and paste.
Yeah. By putting things in a code block, you get this little button over here to the right. It's a copy button. And so because it's in a code block, most developers, they want code that they can easily copy and then go paste somewhere. I wrapped it in a code block so that I can easily copy and paste and put it somewhere.
But it's not necessary. Everybody could just do, Control C, right. Control V. Okay. Right. All right. just making sure, because I'm like, why would I do all of this extra stuff?
Right, well, again, if you do it once, you only have to do it that once, and the AI will replicate it again and again. It does it all by itself.
All right. Now, so this is really, really cool. Let's just take this in a couple of minutes we have left, just one step further. Let's say somebody wanted to, let's say me, train a model, let's say for stained glass. All right. I do quite a bit of stained glass with AI, and it always comes out. Most of it comes out really well, but it really depends on what model I'm using. So if I wanted to, all right, so now I have my face and everything is great, and you have Dustin and I would have Oz. But let's say I wanted to train it for fantasy, or I wanted to train it for stained glass. Would it be the same thing, but instead of create mask, it would be style?
Yeah, so you would just select style here. And at any time you can hit these info buttons and they'll give you more context of what that option means.
Right.
In case you forget, because there's a lot of things in there, easy to forget. So yeah, you would select is style, the trigger word. So one tip I'll use here or drop here with the trigger words. You want to make sure that it can't be misconstrued with something else that the AI is already trained on. So I might do stained glass as all one word, because it's unlikely that that AI would see that as one word. Or you can even make a shorthand, SG1. Any trigger word that can't be misunderstood as some other subject it might have been trained on. Which is why names are pretty good to do. Like Dustin by itself is fine to do, because AI is not trained on the name Dustin, right? Dustin could be really widely applied in its training data, but I'm training it here on a specific Dustin, so it'll get it. But when using like common words or styles, you want to make it a little bit unique so that it doesn't get convoluted with all the other training data it's been given.
So it should be unique to itself.
Right, unique to your training data.
Right.
So yeah, select style and then choose your steps. I would again choose 2000 and then drop your training file into the area just like you would. Hit the train LoRa and you're 2 minutes away from using your own custom style.
So why have you trained models not on your face, but on something else? Can you show us something else that you've trained other models on, like fantasy or gaming or anything? Have you done any other models that you could just in a couple of minutes show us what you've done?
I haven't trained on any particular styles because there is a certain degree of what's the right word to use?
You only have so many hours in a day.
Well, no, there's a degree of ethics, I think, that applies to when you're training on styles of other people's work. And it's still kind of up in the air how people feel about that. If I were, again, to go back to my same analogy, if I were to go grab all of Claude Monet's work and put it together in my own folder and compress it and upload it here, am I in a sense violating that artist's right to their work by training a model on it? So there's a lot of sort of ethical questions that are still very up in the air.
Right.
Smart people on both sides of the debate. And for that reason, I have avoided training on styles because I don't know how I feel about it entirely yet. Now, if I had, say, a photographer that I knew that I can go to and say, hey, can I train a model on your style, your photography style? And they said yes, 100% I would do that. But to train it on,
hold on. That's not even what I'm talking about. I'm not talking about training it on, Todd McFarlane, Spider-Man. I'm talking about training it on a style of art that is universal, like stained glass, okay, or like fantasy, where I could pick, 30 different artists, or going into my own files, okay, and picking, let's say my different artistic styles that I have created over the last 20 to 30 years, different abstracts, like I have multiple, I could go literally into my website and pull out 30 images from different abstracts, okay, from mandalas, let's say, for instance, and I want them all to look similar to those. That would be very ethical, yes?
Yeah, I would say if it's your own work and it's work that you've done over the years, 100%. I think the ethical concern that is sort of a gray area, like I said, is if you are pulling other artists' stained glass work and you're pulling, even if you're pulling from 30 different artists, you're still pulling their work and using it for your own, your own training data. There's, again, smart people on both sides of the aisle say there's nothing wrong with it. People say there's everything wrong with it. So I've avoided it because I haven't really created any of my own stylistic stuff. Sure. But if you're an artist, you have your own work, 100% you should be building sets of it and training AI on it to see how AI can replicate your work. Not only would that be a great new medium for you to express your art, but also a great medium for you to get ideas for new art pieces. I know you're very good at this, right? Like you use AI mostly for inspiring what to create, right? You use it as a supplement to your creativity, right?
Yes. Well, because for me, everything starts with my camera and then goes into Photoshop and Illustrator, and I play with it. Mm-hmm. And, I've created art that I've never seen anywhere else in the world. So it would be very interesting for me to take pieces of art that I created from scratch. And I would think that my first one would be taking probably 30 or 40 or 50 images that I've taken in nature, nature photographs, and worked on in Photoshop, turning them into digital oil paintings that I've sold for decades now, and utilizing AI to see if it could replicate that the way my work looks. That would absolutely blow my mind. That would be the first thing I would want to do with the LoRa. And so the LoRa is only Flux LoRa.
Yeah, Flux LoRa. That's currently the only one that allows such an easy training methodology.
So once you have the Flux LoRa trained, is the AI going to recognize your code word in all of the other things, or you can only use Flux?
No, it's only the Flux LoRa because you're specifically training a version of Flux to your image, and you have to have that selected from the list. You select.
So my question is, once you have trained the Flux LoRa, what AI can you utilize to produce more images?
Flux LoRa.
Only Flux LoRa?
Yeah.
Okay. And is it the most
advanced? Think of it like, in DALL-E. DALL-E, is that a good one? In DALL-E, we have different styles, right? Vivid, natural. Likewise, in Leonardo, we have different models we can choose in Leonardo.
Right.
Flux LoRa is just like a Leonardo. And then the LoRa's that you're creating are styles being applied. These are custom versions of that exact model. So you have to have that model selected in order to apply those trained styles or those trained.
Right. So I want you to create one image for our followers right now and show us from beginning to end how you do it. now that you've had the model trained?
Yeah. So I would start with my name, and I would just, I'm really into, I'm a whiskey guy. So
No,
I
but I
would
mean,
say,
go out of this completely and show us from step 1 to step 2 to step 3. Completely go
okay,
out of this.
yeah, we'll go
So start with basic Magi and what you're
dashboard,
doing.
new image,
Got it?
select Flux LoRa, click on the list and make sure I've got my most recent one selected.
Got
My
it?
trigger word is Dustin. And I'll start with Dustin in a high-end bar with a whiskey glass, Magi sign in the background. Now I'm going to use our prompt enhance button because I'm lazy and I don't want to engineer a full image prompt. Oh, the AI is going to make a beautiful, highly engineered prompt for me. And then I'm going to choose 3.4 because that's what I prefer. Now, this is the other, I completely forgot to cover this. With Flux LoRa's, you have a couple little fine tuning controls. So inference steps relates to how many passes do you want the AI to do to refine the detail of the image. So it's basically going to go through a bunch of what's called inference steps, and time after time, it's going to get more and more detailed. It starts with a fuzzy photo and then kind of refines and refines and refines until you have the final image. So you can decide how few or how much inference steps you want. More inference steps doesn't necessarily mean a better image. Sometimes it can do too much detail or it can distort detail. Too little inference steps and you lose a lot of the realism. So you kind of want to play around with it and find what works for you. I tend to be around 40 to 42. That's where I found the sweet spot. Prompt guidance. This refers to how closely do you want the AI to stick to your original prompt, or how much wiggle room do you want to give it to be a little bit outside that prompt. So one on a prompt guidance would say, stick only to my prompt, exactly, precisely, do not go outside my prompt. Whereas 20 would be go crazy. Take my prompt as really just a suggestion. And I tend to be around 3 or 3.5 is where I like it because I use prompt enhance to do really descriptive prompts. I tend to want it to be as close to my prompt as possible, but I don't want to limit the AI in creating elements that I might not have thought of. So all that to say, get your prompt in there, set your steps and prompt guidance. The defaults work pretty well. So if you don't even mess with these, you're typically fine. So here we go. Dustin in a bar, Magi in the background with a whiskey glass. It's me with short hair. I don't know why it wants to do me with short hair a lot of the time. So I typically have to go with long hair. And we'll try it again and see what it comes up with. But yeah, from there, you can just kind of tweak the words, tweak the prompt here and there to include more things, or if it's missing something, you can fix the details yourself.
There's Dustin. I like you with short hair too, but this is so you. That is really spot on. Like I literally, if I just like knew you a little bit and I saw this photo, I would say, yeah, that's Dustin Stout. I would say this is about 85 to 90% spot on.
Yeah,
right?
it's great.
I think
Correct
this
number of fingers,
actually
right?
aged you a little bit. I think this is like you in like 5 years.
Yeah, could be. It could be. And typically, what I'll do after this is when I get an image that I really want to use, I'll take one extra step. I'll go over here to the upscale and I'll use our old friend, the Leonardo upscaler. I'll drop that creativity down to 1 because I don't want it to make any modifications. I just want to increase the resolution a bit, and I'll upscale it so that I just get, it'll refine just a little bit of detail. It'll eliminate some of the fuzziness that you might see, and typically comes out with a much higher quality version of that same exact photo.
Nice. Now, if you did turn that all the way to the right, then you'd be giving the AI the okay to change your photo, because
Yeah.
I have played around. I know that if and this is especially true, people with faces, with human faces, when you have something that you know you want to upscale because maybe you want to use it for printing and you love the face, you want to keep that down at a 1 or a 2. If it's something like, I don't know, like you're doing, I don't know, Spider-Man. I do a lot of Spider-Man with different colors. I don't want to get sued by Disney and Marvel. Um, um, and you just want to check it out, and you want to, like, all right, let's go crazy. You can put it up at a 9 or a 10, but if you have an image that you really love and you do not want it to be changed, but you want it upscaled, you want to keep it to a 1 or a 2. If you don't
Yeah.
care, and if it's like I do it a lot with fantasy images, I'll put it up at an 8 or a 9 or a 10. It may give your dragon a third leg, so you may have to redo it down at a 4 or a 5. I generally keep the creativity somewhere in the middle at around a 5. I think it defaults at a 5. That works most of the time. But when it's faces, human faces, you want to keep it at a 1 or a 2. If you love that
Right.
face, don't change it.
Yeah. So I don't know how great the resolution is on this video, but you can see in this image, like the details on the hairs in my beard, so much more crisp,
Yeah.
along with the little stray hairs around the edges, and just such a crisper image. It really kind of takes it up to that next step.
Yeah, everything that I post is NFTs, or any of the art that I post online. 99% they're upscaled. Probably 100% at this point. Well, thank you, Dustin. This was encouraging. This is I'm excited to go and play with this and see what I could do.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have time to go into this, but one last note I'll make is, if you have a physical product, if you are selling mugs or what have you, if you have physical products, a really great idea is to take just a quick photo shoot of that product, maybe a blank white background, as plain as you can get all those different angles of that product, and then train Allura on your product. And then essentially you can put that product into any scene that you want. This is a really big deal for e-commerce brands or product creators. If you have a clothing brand, if you have clothes and you can put them on a mannequin and train Allura on those clothes, you can essentially do model photo shoots with your clothing, putting that clothing on models in any scenario whatsoever.
Wow, I would sell a lot more clothing on Etsy if I did that. We're going to have a discussion along those lines. Now, would it have to be one particular, because I have an Etsy page, and I have tons of t-shirts and hoodies and other things. Would it just be that one piece of clothing, and I would have to train Allura on that one piece of clothing?
Yeah.
All right. So
I would need to do this for each individual piece of clothing.
Well, that would tend to be expensive after a while, because training Allura does cost.
Yeah, but if you're a brand who pays for actual models to do these photo shoots, it's way more cost.
This is a lot cheaper, a lot more cost.
Yeah, I mean, training Allura is essentially $2 is what it comes out to, and that's much cheaper than hiring a $800 an hour photographer and paying the models, and exponentially cheaper. So for big brands who are doing that kind of stuff, this is a huge game changer.
I may have to upgrade my Magi. We'll see. Yeah, these are some really, really good ideas. Because one thing that will get your product sold on anywhere, Etsy, Instagram, whatever, is having a lot of variety of poses. Because I've done photo shoots where obviously I'm not charging, I'm not paying the photographer, because I am the photographer. And I'm not paying the models either. If they wear the clothing, they own it. So I get lots of people coming to my photo shoots, but that's a lot of time and effort.
Time, right? We have to value our time.
A lot of effort, and all of the clothing that I have to buy for them.
Right, so, in product, right?
This is interesting.
If you're paying them in product, you're still paying them. You had to pay for the product.
Hundreds of dollars. Yep.
Good
Although
observation.
I have some very close friends because they come out wearing my stuff all the time. It's cool. Anyway, thank you again, Dustin. This went a little longer than anticipated, but I really appreciate you being here, and hopefully we'll get lots of comments on this video and people will join Magi, because why would they not?